So ever since that infamous ranking every first episode of anime video went viral a couple weeks ago, there has been a lot of talk about tourists in the anime scene. I've done several videos on it recently. It's a Gundam did a video on it, which we'll likely be reacting to on stream tomorrow. But yesterday, the Anime Man made a video on it. And that's interesting because the Anime Man is probably the biggest, at least most famous voice in the anime community here on YouTube. And I've been watching him for years, less so the last couple of years, especially ever since he started getting entangled with Hassan Piker and whatnot. And his opinions have always been very hit or miss, to say the least. But at the end of the day, he lives in Japan. He's an Australian immigrant who lives in Japan, speaks the language fluently, has been a fan his whole life. And if nothing else, he is a real fan. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, his passion for anime was never in question. His understanding of anime is never in question, which is why I find him making a video called The Anime Tourism Problem to be interesting. So welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and yeah, we're going to check this out. We're going to see what he has to say. I mean, it's a 24-minute video called The Anime Tourism Problem, and the reason I want to check this out, I saw a clip go kind of viral from it on X today. And then when you read through the comments, a lot of people were saying it was taken out of context. People shared even more context. But even then, it all amounted to maybe a minute long. Like, how can you get context with just a minute of a 24-minute video? So we're going to react to this. Before we do, hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. And yeah, let's figure out what has to be said about the anime tourism problem.
Alright, fine. I'll talk about this. God damn it. So normally I wouldn't make this kind of video, but I guess it's been blowing up in my mentions recently, so I figured I would maybe give my 2 cents on the matter, even though there has already been a ton of people who have made their own interpretations on the whole thing. But as the title suggests, let's talk about tourists. And no, I don't mean tourists in the traditional sense of, you know, people you see out and about exploring a country or anything like that. I mean tourists in the digital footprint sense. Or
let's call it what it is. The pejorative sense. The negative sense. Because we do use it as a pejorative. You know, a tourist is somebody who is not part of the anime community. And maybe tourist is used for other niches as well. But it's really something I only ever hear when it comes to anime. And yes, when we say tourist, it is a negative. If you are not an anime fan and you're pretending to be an anime fan, or you're very new to it and you want to see it changed for whatever your sensibilities are because you don't actually like anime, you just like the idea of anime or like it for the cloud because it's the next big thing, you know, kind of like the Anime Men, that channel that we reacted to that did blow up, that started this, or I guess reignited this whole discussion. That's a tourist. He's probably gonna be nicer about it than I am, but what can I say? He's a multi-million sub channel or whatnot, and I'm just a little me.
More specifically in the subculture sense. You know, people who are just visiting and checking it out, you know, looking at it from the surface and maybe getting a different perspective on it than people who actually live or are a part of said location. And the same thing can definitely be said for subcultures. And today we're going to be talking about the tourists of one particular subculture that I happen to have been a part of for quite a while now. Anime. I think it's really nobody's surprise that, especially over, I would say, the past 5 years or so, basically ever since COVID happened and everyone was forced to stay inside, and a lot of people over COVID very much got into anime when maybe beforehand they didn't even have a split thought about it. And it was...
Now, mind you, this isn't inherently a bad thing, because obviously I've given a lot of takes about what I feel about tourism, anime tourists. We use the term tourist as a pejorative. That being said, being a tourist is not, before he even gives his opinion, I want to state this, is not inherently a bad thing. Everyone starts off as a tourist of something before you become a full-on fan of that. Because like you said, you're dipping your toes in the water. You're just checking it out. Let's be real. There's a lot of motherfuckers out there that are big Fallout fans, your boy included, that started with Fallout 3. But what makes you go from a tourist to a fan? Well, let's use Fallout as an example. Fallout 3 was so many people's introduction to the game series, and they fell in love with it. It was great. And then what happens? New Vegas comes out. A lot of people that like Fallout 3, they went on to check out Fallout New Vegas. But then some fans that never played the originals went back to play the originals, and they got really invested. And by all means, by that point, yeah, they probably crossed the barrier to being a fan. They want to invest in not just the niche part of it that they enjoy, but the full experience. And again, there's nothing wrong with just staying a tourist, you know, being a casual. That's another word you use for it, casual. as long as you acknowledge what you are, and more importantly, as long as you don't come in and try and change what people love about the pre-existing fandom, about the pre-existing product, things to that effect. So yeah, everyone starts as a tourist. It's only been used as a full-on pejorative relatively recently because people do not want to go back and experience the originals, the classics, because people do not respect the history, where it came from, or more than that, because people want to change what they are now coming into. But again, let's see what Joey has to say. Just want to get the whole tourist is bad thing out of the way early, because everyone does start as a tourist of something at some point.
Due to those extreme circumstances that we were all put into all over the world, that a lot of people who previously didn't give a rat's ass about anime or Japanese animation of any sorts came out the other end being anime fans, or at least self-proclaimed anime fans.
When talking about COVID, I think he hits the nail on the head. Now, mind you, I think there were factors well before COVID. Obviously, you've got things like Toonami. You've got Dragon Ball Z blowing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was a big deal. You had the big three in the mid-2000s, Naruto, One Piece, Bleach. But then I would say that the big thing that really started, latching on for tourists was Attack on Titan. Now, COVID rapidly accelerated that, because like you said, there's people in their houses, and they're consuming all this anime because, well, they've seen The Office for the 10,000th time. Why not go ahead and try out, Demon Slayer or something? And you saw a lot of that. But the point is, the rise of tourism and the growth in tourism didn't start with COVID, it just exponentially increased with COVID.
These, ladies and gentlemen, are what we call anime tourists. Or I guess that's what the internet decided to call them, because I only just found out about this term maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it's fucking hilarious.
I want to assume he, I'll be real, Joey is, I don't want to say he's bad faith. I think that he very much, because of the size of his channel, he does everything he can be to not be controversial. And that's why I haven't watched him in a long time, because there's not really an authenticity there anymore, again, by my assessment. But at the end of the day, he's one of the biggest voices in the space. So I'm of two minds on this one. One, bro, you interact with the anime community, that's your entire online presence. That's what your whole channel's built off of. That's what your audience is built off of. There's no way you've never heard this term before. The other part of me is like, well, maybe he actually hasn't really heard about this term because it's an intrinsically Western thing, and he does actually live in Japan. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that, okay, maybe he really never has heard this term before. But again, I'm skeptical, because even if you live in Japan, you're an English speaker and you got a predominantly Eastern or Western audience. So I would think you've heard the term before now, at least because you've got a bunch of Western friends that are in the anime community. I'm sure they brought this up.
And especially over the COVID pandemic, and especially with the blow-up of things like TikTok and short-form media, there has definitely been no ending of this surge of anime tourists who are invading our sanctity and our sanctuous place. And, there is one particular video which I'm not going to give any attention to, and I'm not going to mention names, because I've already used it in the
I will. The Anime Men
thumbnail, and I'm sure most people are already aware of the situation. If you care to know what it is, then I'm sure somebody, or at least 20-something people in the comments, have mentioned their names. But a particular video was, sent to me. Not just, people who watch my stuff, but also personal friends of mine who were like, Joey, you're gonna have to see this video. And it was essentially very much a me-coded video. This is a video that you would have seen maybe on my main channel like 5-10 years ago or something like that, where it's essentially a video of a bunch of anime fans, at least self-proclaimed anime fans, who go and rank every single first episode of every popular anime from every single year. When I saw...
he says it's a me-coded episode, and I hate the term coded. I think that's a fucking stupid word. What can I say? I use tourist, ironically. But yes, actually, when I was initially watching the video that he's talking about, it did remind me of an old school Joey video. Or not really. It reminded me of somebody cosplaying an old school Joey video, because he actually, even back then, again, had reverence for anime. He cared about it. He knew the history. He was a legitimate fan, not just capitalizing on anime.
That video, I was like, damn, that's kind of a cool idea. I kind of wish I made that video back in the day, or maybe I can still make it today if you guys want. So I was curious, because it's not often that we get to see anime fans, or at least anime content creators in this platform, talk about the medium from that big of a spectrum. You know, most people are usually very quick to talking about the hot shows that are currently trending right now, or, you know, maybe shows that they grew up with, you know, maybe from like the 2010s or the 2000s or the 90s or stuff like that. But it's very rare that we actually get to see people going through the entire lifetime of anime, at least in the popularity sense or the popular sense of televised anime from, you know, the 1960s or whatever. You know, I've done a couple of videos like that in the past, as you guys have hopefully watched and liked, and you know, although I didn't grow up with the older stuff, I try to understand the significance and the history behind it, because the medium itself would be nothing without these giants whose shoulders all of these other shows have stood on. But man,
and there it is. I get there's there's 20 minutes more of this video, and I want y'all to stick with me because I'm sure it's gonna get better. But he really just answered the question right there, or at least, you know, gave a perfect example of what makes someone a fan. He literally stated that he went out of his way to understand the history of the medium, because all the modern stuff and all the things that people love, even things like Dragon Ball Z and whatnot, even the popular things from, you know, the 90s and whatnot, stood on the shoulders of other giants. You wouldn't have Dragon Ball Z, for example, without Fist of the North Star. You wouldn't have Fist of the North Star without probably things like Astro Boy. And I mean, the list goes on. You can keep backtracking, but went out of their way to find it and to relish in it and to learn about it. Like, bro, I've been watching anime since I was a fucking child. That being said, I'm a rare case. My dad was an anime fan in the 80s, back before I was even born, and back when it was still called Japanimation. I didn't even hear the term anime until I was probably 13 years old. I grew up calling it Japanimation because that's what it was in our household. So I was watching weird shit. You know, I was watching X and Kimba the White Lion. Like, you know, Dragon Ball came a bit later. So yeah, again, this is what makes somebody a fan versus a tourist, going out of your way to learn and respect and admire and in a lot of ways adhere to.
Man, this video, this fucking video, it was not up to the standard that I was hoping for. Look, this isn't supposed to be some kind of like drama video, obviously. You know, I don't give a fuck about that kind of stuff, but I just find it really amusing as to just the visceral reaction that the online anime community had towards this video. Like, God, I don't think I've ever seen such a visceral reaction to an anime video in my 12 years of being an Anituber.
I mean, you say that, but what about the visceral reaction everybody had to Hassan coming on your show, Trash Taste, only a few months ago and trying to make the entire thing political and pro-socialism and communism? The anime community had a pretty visceral response to that as well, but again, not to dredge up old stuff.
I thought I had some bad takes. I have been thwarted, and I had a lot of people being like, Joe, you gotta make a response video to it. You gotta make your own version of this video. You gotta come back and save Attitude, bro. And, you know, look, I respect that, and I appreciate all of those kind comments. So if you did, you know, on social media and stuff like that, kind of, you know, weirdly defend me in a weird way, even though I had nothing to do with this video, thank you. But I think I want to use this opportunity instead to just kind of talk about the more broader underlying issue, the elephant in the room, if you will. Because anime tourism, or anime tourists, are a kind of a real thing. And, you know, even though this may be the first time I'm talking about it in a long-form video like this, I have been kind of subtly talking about it, you know, using my short-form content on, you know, things like Instagram Reels and TikTok and stuff like that, which, you know, if you missed that whole train, check this video, links in the description. There is a big reason why I, personally, kind of took a break from making anime content, and it was basically because of this very issue. Like, a lot of people think this whole anime tourism thing started only like recently, like I'm talking like a couple of years ago. No, it's this problem has been around for quite a while now. As much as I think that, yeah.
Now, when he says quite a while, now, I don't know how far a lot of y'all go back when it comes to being anime fans. If some of you guys are anime fans at all, you might not be watching this for that at all. You just like fucking drama, which, hey, fair enough. As long as I get the engagement, I ain't gonna bitch. But, like, when I first noticed true anime tourism was probably 2012, and I'm sure it existed far before then. That's when I noticed it. I started finding myself at, anime conventions with a bunch of teenage girls. And mind you, I was a teenage boy at the time, so it's not weird I say that. But like, I was 2012, I've been around, what, 17 or so? 17, 18, something like that. And you would have a bunch of these teenage girls cosplaying as these characters who they don't know anything about. They're just doing it because it's the hip thing, You try and strike up a conversation, and they don't even know who they're cosplaying. One girl in the group might, and the others are just her friends because they want to do a cosplay group together and she needed the people. Or you see all these people wearing Attack on Titan outfits, and you're like, because that was a big thing. Everyone dressing up as Attack on Titan, regime members. You're like, oh, what other anime do you watch? Oh, only Attack on Titan. It's the only one I've seen. It's like, you dropped all the money on the cosplay, you dropped all the money on the convention tickets, and you're here, and there's all these voice actors and vendors and whatnot, and you seen one show, like, you're doing it for photo ops. You're doing it to feel cool and popular or whatnot. Like, that's when I first noticed anime tourism. And I don't know if the word tourist was a thing yet. If it was, I hadn't heard of it at the time. But again, we're talking, like 13, 14 years ago.
It is a problem in a weird way. I do also think it's an inevitability. So to start with, why is it a problem? Why is anime tourism or anime tourists a problem? Well, it's a problem for a number of reasons. And I think the biggest one may have to do with the perspectives of those who have been in the anime community, the online anime community, for as long as it's been around. Basically, I would say since like the early 2000s, maybe the early 2010s, at least on YouTube and stuff like that. Because believe me, when I started the Anime Man channel back in 2013, there wasn't really an AniTube community. There wasn't really an anime community. There were, of course, yes, great AniTubers who came before me and who were around before I came onto the scene. And there was most certainly an anime community online on things like forums and stuff like that. But it wasn't so much a community as just like a gathering. Because
he's 100% correct. Like, for those of you that have been on YouTube since, say, 2006 or so when it first came out, the anime community on YouTube at the time more or less amounted to people just, like, doing PNG top 10 lists of, like, hottest characters or best fights or whatnot, and then you have, like, AMVs. Anime AMVs always set to Linkin Park. And that was really about the extent of it, unless you really dug deep.
The medium was so still niche, and especially new in the Western world, and especially on the online Western world, that there wasn't so much a community of sorts. And it wasn't really until, I would say, like, mid-2010s that it really started to become this, like, community, if you will. Because before then, it was very common in the real world, and I was a big victim of this, that if you came out and said that you liked these Japanese cartoons, you would just be bullied for it. Oh, you like
the good old days. And you know what? I miss them. When you're a kid and you're getting bullied for enjoying Naruto or Dragon Ball or Yu Hakusho or fucking so many even more niche ones. Shaman King is comparatively niche to some of those. Ultimate Muscle, like. Yeah, you got bullied for that shit, and you wish, and you want, I want this to be popular, I want this to be cool, and then it gets popular, it gets cool, and you see the tourists, and you realize you made a huge mistake in wishing for that as a child.
These weird Japanese cartoons with, like, your anime schoolgirls and blah, 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 blah. I mean, trust me, I was there. I got bullied for it in school, not only being the only remotely Asian kid in my school, but the only kid really who knew about this weird and wonderful world of Japanese cartoons. And so imagine my shock when, over the COVID pandemic, especially, and even a little bit before then as well, I'd say ever since the rise of TikTok, all of a sudden, those kids who were definitely at school bullying those kids who loved watching anime, then turned around and went, hey, you know what? Anime is actually kind of cool. Because, God, let me tell you, you kids today, I don't want to sound like an unk straight off the bat, but you kids today have got it fucking easy. We ran so that you guys could walk.
And look, ain't nothing wrong with that, but I was like, this is why respecting the classics is so important. This is 100. Look, if your first Resident Evil game was Resident Evil 4, all right, fair enough. No one's gonna bitch. That was a lot of people's first Resident Evil game. If your first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy 7, all right, fair enough. That was a lot of people's first Final Fantasy game. But let's be real. Y'all motherfuckers had it easy. And anime is no different. Like, being in the video store as a kid, you go, like, I'm talking like when it was VHS tapes and you were renting anime, you didn't know what the fuck it was. Do you know how many times they would have anime in the kids section because it was a cartoon, and it turns out you're getting like fucking full frontal nudity and blood and gore, and I'm not bitching, that shit was awesome. But your parents had no idea. There's like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's in the kids section of the fucking Hastings or whatever, and lo and behold, you find out you get some anime in your life, and it's that good shit, or again, that we call Japanimation. You had to discover shit, and you didn't even know what it was, because it had these weird-ass titles that you couldn't pronounce, you couldn't remember, you just vaguely have memories of it, and then maybe you'll stumble upon it years later, like, oh my god, I've seen this brings back so many memories, the nostalgia hits hard, but like, you couldn't just turn on a fucking streaming app, or even really go to the internet and just like, Google search some key phrases and find what you're talking about. This shit was fleeting.
Now you don't get bullied for liking anime. You get bullied for liking the wrong anime. Can you imagine the amount of privilege that comes with? But all jokes aside, there is most certainly now, because anime has become so much more...
Mind you, if you're a Black Clover fan, I will bully you.
more of a mainstream thing, and so much more of a hip and cool thing, and an okay thing to enjoy. There is certainly now a new group of people who previously, again, did not even want to say the word anime out loud, but, didn't take the medium all that seriously. And then now, because of things like shorts content, and because of the COVID pandemic pushing everybody inside for years and years, and basically people getting so bored to the point where they're like, all right, fine, let me give this anime thing a go, and then...
He's not making this up, by the way. Bill Burr did an episode of his podcast years ago, during the COVID era, where he was bored with what was on Netflix, and so he randomly turned on One Punch Man, and he, according to him, he loved it, he enjoyed it. Like, watch the Bill Burr podcast episode from years ago, where he's trying to describe One Punch Man, and is it funny because he's Bill Burr and he's good at being funny? Yeah, obviously. It also reeks of tourism energy. But again, there's some laughter to be found there. But the point is, like, you can tell he's not an anime fan. He's a dude that found one Japanese cartoon that he liked, that he enjoyed, and it's all he wanted to talk about for that episode. And this isn't like unique to anime. Those of us that grew up reading comics obviously experienced the MCU. You got bullied in school for reading comics, drawing Spider-Man, whatnot, and then the MCU comes out, and all of a sudden all the cheerleaders and the girls that, thought that you were so weird for liking this nerdy shit, now they're buying MCU shirts at fucking Hot Topic. These are what I call Hot Topic nerds. Anime tourists are just another type of Hot Topic nerd.
Ending up enjoying it, it created a bunch of anime fans. And let me just say right off the bat, I don't think that being an anime tourist is necessarily all a bad thing. I think everybody went through that phase at least once in their life. I think...
Exactly. See, again, I couldn't agree more. You are always a tourist at first, no matter what it is you're getting into.
When back in like the early 2000s and stuff like that, or like the 2010s, if you started getting into the anime community and stuff like that, I think everybody at one point was an anime tourist. But we didn't call them anime tourists. We called them weeaboos. It's like kind of the same thing. If you think about it, it's just like now...
No, I disagree. Because tourists have... See, this is where I think Joey is incredibly wrong. Weeaboos were obsessive about the Japanese stuff. Even if they knew nothing about it, they were obsessive. And with their little information, you could tell they at least cared. They were just ignorant. All right? So Weeaboo, it was still like... it was a pejorative. But there was more respect to that because, okay, yeah, you're annoying, you're weird, you're cringe, you'll learn some shit, but at least the passion was there. Tourists are the opposite. They're using it for clout. They don't actually care about the medium. When the next big thing hits in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, that's what they're all going to be into. And so there's a lack of respect for the actual medium. It's only being used to further their own popularity.
It sounds less like a slur. What is a weeaboo? A weeaboo is essentially just somebody who is non-Japanese, who loves anime so much to the point where they think they understand everything about Japan and Japanese culture and Japanese subculture, but in reality they are completely misguided and base all of their information off of fictional Japanese cartoons.
Yeah, correct, exactly. He hit the definition of weeaboo on the head. But again, at least there was a love and a reverence and a respect, even if it was misguided. That is very different from tourism, at least in my opinion.
And they create their entire personality around that so that they could fit in with a niche and fit in with who they think they actually are. It kind of sounds like an anime tourist. You know, it's essentially the same thing. But here is where I would differentiate a weeaboo from an anime tourist. And this is purely just my personal definition, so if you think otherwise, I'd love to know down in the comments, alright? I think the biggest difference between an anime tourist and a weeaboo is that anime tourists think that their opinion on anime is more correct than everybody else. What do I mean by that? Well,
Alright, again, I already said what I think it is. I think a tourist is someone who doesn't respect the medium, respect the history, respect the original fans. But when he says only their opinion's correct, honestly, he may win me over this argument. Let's see. I'm curious.
Think that a lot of these like anime tourists very much, you know, again, started watching anime over the pandemic and therefore have only really been exposed to, let's say, the past 5, maybe give or take 10 years of anime. And don't get me wrong, in the 10 years of anime since 2015, anime has certainly changed. You know, the type of shows that get big have changed.
Oh, have they?
Fucking increased, and there have been a lot of merits to the evolution of anime in the past 10 years. But I think at the same time, anything that falls outside of the scope of the past 10 years, and anything that falls outside of the scope of how they think anime is and how they think anime should be.
Also, anything that falls outside the scope of what has been popular in the last 5 to 10 years. Because let's be real, anime is a medium, not a genre. It incorporates a bajillion different genres, subgenres, the whole nine. So even if it's from within the last 5 to 10 years, there's a lot of that shit that these folk never saw because it wasn't what was popular. So you're not going to gain any clout from talking about it or watching it or whatnot.
Is deemed as wrong or incorrect. And I think that's why you get a lot of these like newer anime fans now who hype up these current shows, you know, these like big shonen shows, you know, like Solo Leveling or Attack on Titan or Jujutsu Kaisen and stuff like that, and think that every anime that should be praised needs to fall under that same exact umbrella. That's like,
I could not agree with this point any harder. Joey, you're winning me over. It's been a while since I watched your content, but you're winning me over.
like listening to a rock band and thinking that all music needs to sound like rock music for it to constitute as music, which is ridiculous for me to even say out loud.
It's a good analogy.
I don't understand that, you know, not only has anime evolved over the past 10, even 5 years, but, you know, if you go back to like 2000s anime or 90s anime or 80s or 70s or 60s anime, the art and the medium has evolved vastly. Just like how Led Zeppelin sounds completely different to, say, you know, Muse, you know, just as a broad example, right?
I was really worried he was going to say Imagine Dragons. Okay, dodged a bullet there.
It doesn't justify the fact that Led Zeppelin is no longer relevant or it's crap or it falls outside of music. That's what these anime tourists, at least from what I have seen online, claim. You know, they think that they have entered this space and gone and looked around and gone, hey, everything that is like not epic fights and shonen and amazing animation and hype doesn't fall under what I constitute as a good anime. Therefore, it must be bad. I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing a comment on like a TikTok or a YouTube video or something where somebody called these anime tourists or at least this new rise or era of anime tourists as the Columbus era of anime. You know, much like Christopher.
All right. So remember when I said at the beginning of this video that there was a clip that was taken supposedly out of context? It was about this first 30 seconds, and someone followed up with the next 30 seconds. Like the person that followed up was like, how come you didn't play the whole clip with the full context? Here's the additional context. And it's only the next 30 seconds after this. So basically the next minute is what I've seen. And the context is, you need the full video, or at least you need more than just a minute out of a 24-minute video.
for Columbus, who went to the Americas, mistook it for India, and called the natives now a term that I'm not allowed to say anymore.
Hey, look, I grew up on the Cherokee Nation. Joey, if you see this, you got the pass. You can say Indian. We say Indian all the time on the res, okay? You can say fucking Indian. I promise you. Most Native Americans, most Indian, they don't give a fuck, bro. I promise. You can say it.
And
also, aren't you Australian? Like, you have Aboriginals. You got your own versions of Indians. Again, you get the pass.
Claim the land for themselves because he was like, well, I discovered it, and fuck all of you guys. This is my place now. And I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what these anime tourists are doing. They're like coming to these unfamiliar lands, planting their flag in the soil, and going, we own this land now. Out of the way, previous people. Your opinions are irrelevant now because you are old and your time is up and you don't know what good anime is anymore. But at the same...
But he's not wrong, by the way. He's not wrong in the slightest. You know how often I am told by new head anime fans things like Dragon Ball Z doesn't hold up, oh, the animation's bad, things to that effect, or we see articles all the time, or new gen anime fans, tourists on X, like, what's the new big three? Like, guys, there's only one big three. There'll only ever be one big three, because big three isn't actually about how popular things were, because if you look at it, Bleach actually was never that high in the rankings and the ratings compared to Naruto and One Piece when it comes to sales, for example. The reason the big three is a time period, is the time period of, and really it's only about how anime was viewed in the West. It's not even really a term in Japan. So yeah, there's never going to be a new big three, because big three is not about the popularity. It's about a period of time and what it meant for anime in the West. But the point is, he's 100% correct. These people don't know the terms, they don't know the history, and therefore they look like morons. But when you try to explain this to them, they won't ever listen, because it's more of a, it's old man yelling at cloud. They view as old man yelling at cloud. Yeah, no, Joey's correct. I mean, again, I can only anecdotally, but I can still back this up. Not even anecdotally, I can just show you people posting on X that do this shit all the time.
Same time they claim all of this, they don't respect the history of the medium, they don't respect how the evolution has happened, they don't respect the cultural significance behind the evolution of the medium. They just look at it as something like cool and pop and fun, and a good way to get the attraction of the huzz. Yes, I did die a little inside saying that out loud. And
I can proudly say I have no fucking idea what that just meant.
You know what? I'm thinking about all of this and sitting here and talking about it and being like, shit, am I the problem? Like, have I just turned into such an unk now that I can't accept the fact that the online anime community has changed and the ethos of it has been replaced by these new and fresh faces and these darn kids nowadays?
No. I don't know what he's going to say, because he posed it as a question. I'm going to be out the gate. No, this is not we're getting old and crotchety sort of thing. Let's think back to that music analogy, right? Let's think about that music analogy. What are the bands that always make it big? What are the bands that become the thing and they last for generations? They're the ones that respect what they came before them. They're the ones that were inspired. They could be a band like Muse, like he said. Muse, hypothetically, has nothing in common with Led Zeppelin or the Beatles. However, because they understand music history, because they understand music theory, because they understand, and have reverence for what came before and know how to apply it, it wouldn't, I don't know who Muse's inspirations were, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find a rock band that was not in some way, shape, or form inspired by the Beatles. Like, even use a gay-ass band like fucking Green Day, right? Use a loser-ass band like Green Day. Green Day themselves, when it was stated during their 21st Century Breakdown album, that album was mostly inspired by the Beatles and Bob Dylan when it comes to the songwriting. Like, again, Green Day, love them or hate them, can't exactly say that I'm a fan, they've lasted from about 1994 to they are still making music today, and they are still a very culturally relevant name. Again, the Gorillaz. The Gorillaz have been out since the 90s. They're still going. They're still putting out tracks, and they're doing stuff, sure, with new hit up-and-coming, fucking rappers. But they're also doing songs like Elton John. Why? Because they respect music history. They respect and have reverence, not just for musicians that came before them, but musicians of all different genres that came before them. And the bands that no one's heard of and will never last or one-hit wonders, don't have that, never had that, won't ever have that. Anime is literally no different. So this isn't a case of, oh, we're getting too old for this, because there's a lot of modern anime that I absolutely love, even though I have a problem with most of the modern anime community. I absolutely adore Frieren. Frieren is an incredible anime. Dude, Kaiju number 8, top of my near the top of my list when it comes to anime of the last 5 years or so. But then you can bring up something else recent, like No Gun's Life, which is a very slow-paced noir detective story set in a dystopian cyberpunk future, and it didn't really do numbers, and I don't see folk talk about it. It wasn't as hot as something like Demon Slayer. It wasn't near as hot as something like Demon Slayer, so it's getting no love or reverence, but by all means, it was a fucking amazing anime. Sasuke and Peeps was goddamn incredible. Sasuke and Peeps, fucking nobody watched. When did that come out? I'll tell you. Last year. Did you know there was an anime about a magic talking bird, teaching a Japanese salaryman to be his magical apprentice in a three-way isekai that has like a bunch of political storytelling and magical girl shonen battles and stuff like that? Did you even know this existed? No, because you don't go out of your way to watch stuff that isn't the big new thing. So, but yeah, point is, you're completely justified in feeling like these new fans are not real fans.
Coming to take over the land that we once held the flag on? You know, I don't know. Because I'm sure there's a couple of people in the comments who are saying that exact thing, being like, alright, Ankh, you don't even watch anime anymore. Well, you know what? Maybe there's a fucking reason for that. Maybe it's because the way that I see the anime community now is not the same anime community that I was a part of and I grew up with. And I'm sorry if that makes me out to be an Ankh, but trust me, kids, you will feel this in about 5-10 years from now.
Well, and also it's a matter of the content can still be good content. I just rattled off a bunch of recent shows that I loved, that I adored, but the community can be a terrible... I'm a massive Sonic the Hedgehog fan. This is going to be a surprise to no one. I talk about Sonic every chance I can get. You want to know what I don't do and haven't done for many years now? Interact with the Sonic community at large. Why? Because the Sonic community at large is fucking disgusting. They're degenerates. They're like, the majority of the Sonic community is just a cesspool. That being said, I buy pretty much every goddamn new Sonic game that comes out, and I play them because I'm a fan of the character, I'm a fan of the stories, and I will never not be. I can also honestly criticize them, admit there's a lot of bad ones, there's a lot of stingers, but the point is, I can engage with the content, love the content, while hating the fucking fan base around it. And modern anime is a lot of just that. I'll be real, I can't stand a lot of modern anime fans. I do love modern anime.
Whether you like it or not. Now, in saying all of this, there is, in my opinion, one positive thing that came out of this influx of anime tourists. And it's the fact that it really made the anime industry take itself a lot more seriously. Because we wouldn't have nearly as many anime movies, like big budget, big screen anime films. We wouldn't nearly have as high of an animation quality and production quality as we do now. We nearly wouldn't have as many just shows being made if it wasn't for this new influx of this demographic that was previously uninterested in the medium. Regardless of how you like to view...
See, but I won't deny that that's a potential good thing. Because he's right. We get, on average, we get 25-ish new shows a season. There's 4 seasons per year. So we get, about 120, give or take, new anime every single year. Now, the problem is, the only ones that really blow up are the same sort of shit over and over. The same, again, not to dog you if you're into solo leveling or if you're into Demon Slayer or things like, or you're into Chainsaw Man, but it's just shows like that. Every now and again, something different squeaks through, like Frieren. But again, how many animators rattle off before that you guys have never heard of, such as Sasuke and Peeps, or No Gun's Life, Girls Band Cry, Neon Rouge, Metallic Rouge, things like that. Now, to be fair, Metallic Rouge wasn't actually that great. It took me a while to realize it, but it wasn't actually that great. The point is, even though we're getting all this new anime, most of it still goes under the radar because it's not hitting that, TikTok brain tourist demographic.
Anime today and how quote-unquote mainstream it has gotten. I think as an anime fan, we like to see the medium evolve. We like to see the medium get better in terms of just quality. Like, regardless of whether you don't like One Piece, or you don't like JJK, or you don't like Solo Leveling, or you don't like all of these, like, big mainstream shows that are getting these, like, movies now, you can't deny that a lot of these shows look absolutely fucking gorgeous. Like, I've only seen clips of the new Demon Slayer movie that is out in cinemas right now, and it's fucking astonishing how good this fucking movie looks. Like, it's...
Couldn't agree more. The visual quality, the visual fidelity of anime is beautiful. Now, you still got some out there that are not animated particularly well, but, like, yes, anime, by and large, has gone up tenfold in its visual quality. But visual quality is only part of what constitutes as quality when talking about a medium as a whole.
It's almost making me consider going to go watch it, even though I didn't even finish season 2. A couple of days from now, the new Chainsaw Man movie is coming out, and I didn't think that they would be able to get better at the animation from the anime series, but just from the trailer, yeah, it looks freaking incredible. Like, we would not have anything like this if it wasn't for these anime tourists. Like, if anime was still just as niche of a thing in Japan, or especially in the West, we wouldn't be getting shows like this. We would probably still be stuck in, like, you know, early 2000s quality, which, you know, I have a soft spot for, don't get me wrong. That was my freaking childhood. But at the same time, I can also recognize that a lot of the shows don't look that great and haven't really aged all that well. And
see, I think that's I think that's brain dead tech. I think that's a brain dead take. Imagine, like, let's use something different. You know, let's use Looney Tunes as an example. Looney Tunes, by all technical measures, obviously the old Looney Tunes episodes from the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatnot, don't look great by today's standards in terms of their visual fidelity, the animation techniques, things to that effect. But does that mean that they are poor quality products or that they don't hold up? No, not at all. In fact, I find so much of those old Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry and things like that far more watchable than something like fucking Chowder or Adventure Time or any of those Cal Arts fucking shows that we're getting out of Disney and you know, the West in general for the last several years. So yeah, I don't think that a jump in visual quality is indicative of a jump in overall quality. It makes one more worth it or better. I definitely don't agree with the doesn't hold up argument.
You know what? In a weird way, this kind of influx of anime tourists has also kind of taken me out of retirement. Again, I mentioned this in my previous video where I talked about Reels, or, you know, the fact that I started making more short-form content revolving around anime. These, like, I guess, quote-unquote anime tourists, if you will, that I have seen on things like TikTok and Instagram have almost inspired me to start talking about anime again because, my God, I thought I had some bad takes on anime.
Someone's got to do it. People with good takes, people who actually respect and admire the medium, should do it. As much, I've disagreed with Joey on a lot in his time on YouTube. I'll be real, I've disagreed with Joey a lot in his time on YouTube. That being said, I always still respect the guy, again, with the exception of his friendship with Hassan Piker. I think that's fucked up and disgusting. But beyond that, I respect the man, at least when it comes to his anime takes, the way he views the medium, things to that effect. And you know what? It would be a-okay if these young bucks would be willing to learn, would want to learn, would be like, hey, I hear what you're saying about XYZ. Let me give you my opinion on this as somebody who's been watching Japanimation for 30 fucking years, without being told, go fuck yourself, old man, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, really? Because I've been doing this for, like, longer than you've been alive. But whatever.
It almost inspires the bully in me to be like, hey, you know what? I feel like I need to teach these kids what actual anime criticism and opinions are all about. And it's so fucking funny to me, the amount of people, every time I upload like an anime-related short or an anime-related TikTok, or, you know, I comment on the video that inspired me to make this video, just the amount of people either, like, apologizing to me, being like, we owe this man an apology, or the fact that people are, like, I don't know, genuinely excited for me to come back to talking about anime and stuff like that. Look, at the end of the day, what am I trying to say here? Am I trying to say that, hey, go out there and bully all the anime tourists off the platform, or that, oh, anime tourism has ruined this?
He's not going to say that because he can't afford to, because he's a massive YouTuber with a massive platform and can't say the wrong thing for fear of getting canceled. But you know what? I will say it, yes. Bully all tourists, especially minors, off of the internet, save for those few that are willing to listen and engage in actual dialogue, and they don't have to agree with you, but actually have an argument and a conversation. You know, like my boy Serranos, we all love Serranos, he and I have vastly different takes when it comes to anime, but let me tell you, he's at least very good articulating his points, giving some structure, giving some ideas. Now, mind you, he's a new gen anime fan. He ain't a fucking tourist. Serranos knows his shit. But the point is, anyone that's not willing to engage in good faith, especially minors that shouldn't be on social media anyway, bully them the fuck off. Absolutely.
Sanctity of Japanese cartoons. No, I'm not really saying any of that at all. I think, if anything, if you are an anime fan who is not an anime tourist, and you're saying all this thing about, like, you know, get all the anime tourists out of here and stuff like that, I just don't think, you know, you should take them all that seriously. I personally have been having a lot of fun just kind of roasting anime tourists and, you know, just kind of in a funny way making fun of them for their...
Well, we roast them, and that is fun. Like, there's just taking something seriously and roasting it, and you can do both. I take the idea of anime tourism very seriously, but also have fun roasting it. And the reason I take it seriously is because these new gen fans are the ones that are being catered towards, and they're the ones that are going to, with, you know, the money that's being spent and with the algorithms being listened to on social media, dictate the course of anime and the creation of anime and the adaptations of manga into anime for the next 5 to 10 years. So I do think it's worth taking seriously. Much like I've said recently, we didn't take the freaky blue-haired feminist land whales seriously that usurped Warhammer 40k and D&D and Magic the Gathering and Star Wars and the MCU and soon to be anime. So yeah, I'm sorry, we have lost too many great IPs, great franchises, great hobbies to not take this seriously. That being said, obviously roast them as well, because that's just as fun.
Bad takes. Because at the end of the day, that's all it is. They're just opinions. And yeah, you know, some people might be like, oh, but, you know, if you have a big following online, then you have some responsibility to, you know, give the right information, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're all just opinions, man. If you want to believe that Solo Leveling is the next coming of Jesus, or you want to believe that Astro Boy is the greatest anime ever created, that's cool, dude. You can feel that way. That's totally valid. But what these anime tourists need to realize, that as valid as it is to have opinions like that, you're also not free from any criticism either. So look, I'm not going to drag on
exactly
much longer. All I'm going to say is this. If there are any people watching this video who identify as an anime tourist, or as someone who maybe got into anime over the COVID pandemic, I'm first of all going to say, welcome. One thing you will come to learn very quickly is that the anime community, the online anime community, are the biggest bunch of unforgiving dickheads on the internet.
He is entirely correct. The only people that are more unforgiving dickheads than the anime community are probably the Nintendo and especially Pokemon community, for sure.
Don't take it all that seriously, okay? Just chill. Take your time with exploring the medium, and I think most importantly, come to appreciate the medium for what it is. Even though you personally may not agree with all of the different aspects that make anime, for example, you know, all of these like high school romances, or these questionable ages that some of these characters have, or,
you know, things that are intrinsically Japanese, intrinsically part of the medium, you know, things such as fan service and whatnot. You don't have to like it. No one's saying you have to like it. All we're saying is quit trying to fucking change it. Just watch shit that doesn't have that if you don't like that. Shut the fuck up.
Some of the fact that, I don't know, older anime are maybe boring to you or anything like that. Just try to understand and try to appreciate the culture and the subculture for what it is. Because regardless of whether it goes against what you morally believe is correct or superior, it ain't gonna change for you. You are just one person who watches Japanese cartoons going against 70 years of history that was created by a bunch of Japanese people back in the 60s. Just enjoy those shows for what they are, and if you have opinions on some of them, I say, don't be afraid to express them. Because you know what? Everyone started off as an anime tourist. It's just that anime tourists back in the day were self-aware enough to maybe, I don't know, take a little bit of time to actually explore the medium before expressing their opinions about it online. And at the same time, we took our time to appreciate the medium for what it is, the art for what it is. Because at the end of the day, regardless of how you view it or not, it is an art. And much like any art medium, there's a history behind it, there is a culture behind it, and it takes a lot of time to like get your foot really into that realm. I mean, fuck, I've been making anime content online now for over a decade, and I still go out and want to learn more about the medium and you know, learn about how it came to be and what it will become. Because yes, even though there are a lot of shows in the medium that I absolutely love, and some that I absolutely despise, and a lot that I still haven't seen yet, I want to know more about the medium, and I love the medium for what it is. And if you are one of those people who don't appreciate the medium, don't understand the medium, don't give a shit about the history, don't give a shit about the cultural significance of all of this, maybe don't make a tier list video trying to dissect every single anime.
All right.
Oh, that was base. Holy shit. Well done. I won't lie. I was not expecting to agree with Joey that much in the video. Because like I said, I haven't watched Joey in years. I've found him to be, I don't even really know how to express it without, you know, it's not that I'm not trying to sound like a dick. It's that I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he is one of the OG, and easily was, you know, the biggest name probably in the anime, you know, community, specifically on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, just the larger you get on YouTube, the more safe a lot of people play it, especially with, you know, the ever-growing political correctness and whatnot that needed to happen. Or not that needed to happen, because I vehemently disagree, but like, that they thought needed to happen. You start to see his content really soften, maybe, oh, you know, 2016, 2017, 2018, you know, and that right before COVID sort of era, and I was like, man, it doesn't feel authentic anymore. I can't get behind this. And so needless to say, I was not expecting to agree with him this much. So yeah, well played. I'm actually very impressed with this video. He's far nicer than me. I'm going to continue to be harsh unless you prove that you're, you know, getting, first of all, if I can be harsh to you and you could take it, bonus to you. Well done in that regard. But also, I'm going to continue to be harsh to individuals just in a way to get them out. You know, I'm going to be real. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I want to get as many people out of the kitchen as fucking possible. Too many cooks is a real thing. But all in all, great video. There's going to be more content like this because, like I said, It's a Gundam released a video pretty much covering the same thing. Haven't seen his video yet either. We're going to be going over that one. We're probably going to be going over that one live, and I'm sure my opinions and takes will be pretty much the same, but I'm interested in what he has to say. I could very well end up being wrong, just like I was wrong about this video. But these are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at Bolt the Word, and please subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news nearly every day. Not always about the anime fandom or anime community, but movies, music, Magic the Gathering, video games, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsparadise_Leon, and become a member. For $4.99 a month, you can join the Discord, choose the articles you go over on a day-to-day basis, choose the videos we react to on the Friday night live streams, and of course get involved with over 200 other vital idols. We are a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further, because we do care about diversity. And what kind of diversity? Diversity of thought. If that's interesting to you, join the Discord, hit subscribe, and until next time, it's all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.